Welcome to Son&Earth. Tonight I have with me my good friend Bobby Davis. Welcome, Bobby. How you doing?
How you doing?
That's good. Yeah, he's a jokester. You got to watch out for him.
I'm doing good. How you doing?
Not bad. So you're a commercial airline pilot. Can you tell us a little bit about what that experience has been like?
I fly Airbus A320. We have two airplanes, or actually we have three airplanes now, but one's going away. We have an Airbus A320, Airbus A220, and Embraer 190s, which are the ones that are going away. I fly the biggest of the three that we have. I could talk about really anything with going back to my beginnings of it, or just as a company, as airlines as a whole.
Whatever. Yeah, I mean, you spent a lot of time in the sky. You know, you like going skydiving, and you've been flying planes for how many years now? I remember when you first started. It was a while.
It's like 12 years now, at least.
Okay.
Yeah, since we've known each other. Yeah, because when we started working together, I was already training.
Yeah, that's about as long as Caitlin and I have been together.
Yeah,
actually.
That's cool.
So what got you into the skydiving part of things?
So kind of backtracking a little bit, like aviation was always my hobby and flying was always my hobby. Like just in general, I always loved to go hang out at the airport and just chill with my friends and work on planes and things. And I'll make a very long, convoluted story that's for a different time, very, very short. We had I would flight instruct. This is when I was a flight instructor, and I flew private jets for a little while at that point too. But during that time, I was still flying on the side for fun, and we had a World War II airplane called a T-6 Texan, which is a training aircraft. They made like 12,000 of them for World War II.
Oh,
here in that area, it was in the late 30s through the. They kept using them until like into Korea, or not into Korea.
Okay.
And that was a training aircraft for so basically as a pilot's going into the war, you flew a basic trainer, like a Stearman biplane or a Piper Cub.
Yeah.
You went to the T6. They call it the pilot maker. It was one of the hardest, it still is to this day, one of the hardest planes to learn how to fly.
Why is that? Like what makes it hard to fly?
So, you have what's called a tailwheel airplane and a tricycle gear airplane. Okay. Tailwheel airplanes in themselves they call it conventional. It's how they were always designed. So you'll see an airplane kind of cruise along the ground with the tail on the ground. That's a tailwheel airplane. If you think about it, the weights, it has to do with the CG of the airplane, and the tail always wants to be in front. So as it's tracking down the runway at slower speeds where you don't have as much rudder authority with the higher airspeed. It's a whole lot of aerodynamic stuff to talk about. That tailwheel is always trying to get in front of the airplane, so it's trying to spin around on you.
Interesting.
The T6 itself has a smaller rudder. They built it that way specifically than what it was supposed to have.
Okay.
And that makes the rudder less effective. So it makes you have to be really on your feet and moving it. So we had that airplane. It was a organization called the Commemorative Air Force. And they maintain something like 250 some old World War II planes. It's a volunteer organization, and basically what you do is you sell rides and fundraise to make this airplane fly and keep it going. And we had that up in Akron, and we had a major falling out between a couple of the pilots, and it caused this whole big issue with the national organization and stuff. And I ended up working my way up to be the unit leader of our local volunteer part of it, and that turned into, it was like two guys that I was really tight with. One, I'm still really tight with. The other guy, I don't really talk too much anymore, but they went at it. And long story short, FAA got involved and stuff. I was like, I'm not doing this for a volunteer organization to watch this happen. So I resigned, and we lost the airplane. Made me really not want to fly generally. I still love flying is my passion still. And that's it's not a job to me. I just go and do it. And I really actually enjoy going to work, which is cool. But, so my hobby then was okay, I got to find something else to do now instead of just going and flying planes. So my now wife, who I had known prior to this, has 1,000 skydives, and we always talked about it. We knew each other. She came in for flight lessons at one point. That's how we got to know each other. And then kind of a backstory on us is, when I moved home from Pennsylvania, right before the pandemic started, I went over to go talk about skydiving, and I moved in the next day. We got married. So, yeah, that's how I got into it. Was my wife, Christy, kind of introduced me to it, and she kind of taught me most of the ropes of skydiving. And that's turned into my main hobby now.
Gotcha.
Still in the air, but not flying myself, just flying by myself under a parachute.
Nice. So, I mean, I heard rumors that they were actually flying some of the migrants up and around as they were coming through. Did you hear anything about that? Is there any talk about that within the airline community, or
nothing that I know from the standpoint of the air carriers? I don't know I don't know how they work contracts and stuff like that. I don't know anything really about that side of it, but like, yeah, I haven't heard a whole lot of that. I'm not sure. I know they do. So there's certain companies like cargo carriers that can be contracted to move people, like large amounts of, like, there's a big cargo company that will fly around the world, and they'll take contracts from the military to transport like troops on big 747s that they can transport 250 guys at once.
Oh, the airlines will be contracted for those things.
Yeah,
okay.
They're usually cargo guys that'll do that. Those guys also get contracted by like NFL teams and things like that, because they always have a million people. It's like
you got the whole crew on the plane.
The Patriots have 2 767s. They own themselves to move. It's like, you have 50 guys on the field, and you got to move that many people. And these 767
right? You gotta sit.
Right. It is probably set up something cool like that, like a cooler configuration than just 3 in a row.
Right.
Spirit Airlines style.
Well, I mean, like this whole thing with the migrant crisis that we got going on in the U.S. I honestly am all for people coming to the U.S. Like that was the American dream. I hear stories about, grandparents who say, I came here with $5 in my pocket. And
absolutely.
The thing was, like, they came here to work, to like either make a business or work for a business. Like they wanted to contribute to the community, to the country. And also, I guess, like, with that comes like paying taxes,
right?
Getting a social security number, like, and right now it seems like there's just such a huge influx. New York City is already feeling it really badly. We're in New York right now, so I'm sure we'll eventually feel some of that impact.
Yep.
And it's overwhelming. Someone like the homeless shelters. It's becoming a strain on the system that's supposed to be there for the welfare of the citizens.
Right.
And I really think, I mean, this is just my personal take. Like, I think we should make it easier for them to come over. Maybe not so expensive. Because I know it's like thousands of dollars.
Yeah, and a long period of time. And 100% agree with that. Yeah, it's like, do it like it's like, how do they do it legally when it's so hard to do? It's like, yeah, I understand that, but it's like, yeah, I'm not about like open borders, but like vetting and things like that need to be those kind of parameters need to be taken. But yeah, to make it easier to become a naturalized citizen isn't a bad thing, and giving them an avenue to do that easier, absolutely 100% agree with that.
Yeah, because then they could, I say they come in, like you said, we got to vet them a little bit. I know that the vetting process back at like Ellis Island wasn't really
right. Well,
it wasn't really that
that's
robust.
The thing. That's where it changed. It was like you show up at Ellis Island, stamp, you're in. Yeah. Oh, wait, you're sick. Okay, quarantine.
It was like a 30-second medical checkup where they just check your eyes, your mouth, your nose, your ears, and say, "Oh yeah, you look all right. You should be all right."
But yeah, no, I 100% agree with that. Of finding a way, and it's always easy to say, find the way. But with how our politics work, it's never easy to find a way to
no, there's so much
come together,
so much partisanship. Yep. Where everyone's trying to toe the party line, and no one's just looking out for what's best for America. It feels like, and I mean, I could see this on both sides, because right now there's really only two sides we got to deal with. It seems like some of them will disagree just to disagree,
right? And that's a huge problem. It's just this career politician thing. It goes back to what I always say is like, make government 100% voluntary. You're doing it like you're volunteering to go to the military. You're volunteering to serve your country in the government. You don't get paid. You cannot, it's a long list of things like, oh, you come out as a billionaire. Are you kidding me? How does that work without insider trading?
Yeah. Like, I mean, I honestly think if you're in those positions of power, You should not be trading on the stock market, at least for the period that you're in power. Like, you can have things,
Right.
you can keep them, let them grow, whatever. But like, you know, when people are doing these short sales right before this big announcement,
Yep.
you know, these big laws that are getting passed, it's like, oh, I didn't know. Oh boy. Luck of the draw, I guess, you know?
Luck of the draw, 1,200 times.
Yeah, I mean, like policemen, technically government officials, like state government and some federal, they're not making millions and millions.
Nope.
They're
struggling.
They're struggling right now.
Like, they should be some of the higher paid people, and they're just squeaking by. Especially in the economy today with inflation, how it is. It's like, come on. But
it's starting to seem like, especially today, or maybe the older I get, the more I see it. It definitely seems like there's just this like shadow war going on within America from the inside, where I look around and like things are changing so drastically in a negative way, I would say.
yes.
I know some people see it as like, oh, this is so great. Like, it's a utopia. We're all going to love it.
Right.
But I mean, why are all of these Venezuelans coming up here? They're fleeing socialism. Like, they're fleeing.
It's extreme. Yeah, down there. It's funny how the chain of events happen there. What is that? Like, it really, like, regime change, like 2012 wasn't long ago, where it was like one of the most wealthy nations around, and they voted in this socialist regime, and they're literally fearing for they have special police. It's like Nazi Germany. They've legitimately, I don't remember what they're called. I was watching a show that they had. It was like a Navy SEAL show that they were like, it was a drama, but they went in and it's like the special police, like they're actually like the Gestapo, or like you think of like 1980, what is that? 1984.
Yeah.
Yep. And the thought police, like it's literally that.
Well, it's becoming that. I mean, like anything you can lose your job for things you say on Twitter, for things you say on LinkedIn, Facebook, even.
That's like China's like that too. Like,
yeah, that's just not true freedom anymore. It's all like, it's getting more and more run on emotions. There's less and less, like, let's just look at the science objectively. And if the science isn't really there, we got to accept that and say, okay, we got to keep studying it to come to more conclusive determinations about how things are working or how things should be.
Right. Absolutely. It's like you said about society changing, and it's like, like it's getting bad. It's like, okay, I would always remember hearing like, oh, look back 10 years ago, there was an issue then it's the worst time in society, all the way up until the dawn of humanity. It's this decade was the worst in humanity, but it's like, this is getting really serious now. Like, there's some like crazy things going on in the world. We're like on the brink of World War. We're brink of World War III with like all that stuff going on in Russia and Ukraine,
and China,
and now we have weapons that it's like the push of a button, we're done. See you later. And it's like, that's a little scary. This isn't like the Great War, World War II, where it's like, okay, you can go fight for your country and be the hero. It's like, that's going to be fought in the skies with drones and nukes.
And my biggest problem with the nukes is that we already have enough nukes in this world to blow it up 100 times over. Right. And I'm hearing reports that these countries now on like the Axis, I guess we'll call them, you know, they're stockpiling now or developing more and more. And I'm like, why?
Right.
Like, what do we need more for?
Right.
Like, you look into, like, I don't know. It just seems like such a waste of our resources I mean, I think everybody's taxpayer money from any country.
Right.
Anyone paying taxes in any country that's funding a nuke, like, we're just wasting our money. Like, that could be used for so much better things.
Right. It just gets so deep with like getting into that part of it with the military industrial, like the companies that make like big money from war, and it's like, you're never gonna get out of it because they just make. We're talking trillions of dollars. It was like, I just saw that thing. Like, when we talk trillions of dollars, it's like you make $1 a minute for the next 30 days, you'll be a millionaire. You'll make $1 a minute for the next 33 years will be a billionaire. To be a trillionaire making $1 a minute, it was some ungodly like 3,000 years. That's like how much of a difference a trillion is to even a billion.
Yeah, it can be hard to conceptualize it in our minds. Like, I just like literally think like steps, like million, billion, trillion. But no, it's like million, like billion, and then trillions,
space.
like
right
out in space.
Yep.
But it's too bad. And there's been so many good innovations that have been squashed because all of these little backdoor contracts that have to be held in place at all costs because there's certain families that own these companies and they'll refuse to lose business to Joe Schmo who comes out with some invention.
Right.
My dad, he was actually helping this guy develop this water purifying system. It used a couple of wavelengths of light, very specific wavelengths that not only killed microorganisms in the water, it pulverized them. Like,
turn this off right now. It's they're disappearing.
And so this guy spent his life savings building this machine, and it's literally like that big. You know, the water passes through it, goes out the other side,
and you said
and
it
the
was light waves.
The light within there is purifying the water, like killing any microorganism. He tried selling it to airlines, didn't want it. Tried selling it to the military, and they said that he would have to go to Halliburton.
Wow.
And they would basically take it, like, for free.
Wow.
Like, it'd be a donation.
Right.
And this guy's already in the hole, like,
right.
Who knows how much, thousands and thousands of dollars that he's put into his invention. And it is this wonderful product that if it was mass produced, everyone could have had clean water in every country.
Yep.
You just got this little box. Like, you could put that right in your house and then just have the water flow through there.
From freaking, what is it? What's over there? Cazenovia Creek. Come on in. Like,
just dig yourself a little channel from the creek and put your box there and let the water flow. But he was stopped and he basically lost everything. Like, he was broke because no one would buy it. I think he went to the EPA and they said that he would have to have like this certain set number of units, like 50 units or something.
For them to like make an initial purchase or something.
For them
like
to
that?
like test with.
Oh,
and he would have to pay for the testing, which was like 80 grand or something like that. It was around that figure. I can't remember the exact number, but he's like, I can't swing that. Like, making one of these already took a lot of my finances away. Now you're telling me I got to make this batch of them with what money?
Right.
Like I just refinanced my house to pay for this. But I think that happens all the time. Like the fact that my dad just randomly knew a guy, I was like, there has to be millions of dudes out there, women out there.
Best idea of ever.
Who created something spectacular and it was squashed because there's all of these like corporate contracts that don't want to be broken.
The EPA, it's like another thing. Like, it's just the amount of government agencies that we have that literally don't do anything and just fight for a budget and spend money to get the budget they had last year is just absolutely insane. There's like one.
Yeah, that's true.
There's specifically one law enforcement agency recognized by the Constitution. It's the sheriffs. That's it. Like, and we have FBI, DEA, alcohol, tobacco, firearms, marshals, Secret Service, all these people. I can name, that was 5 off the, how many other law enforcement agencies there are. And it's like, just keep spending money at it. And what do we got? A major border crisis.
Yeah, I mean, policies and resources, I guess, that's failing for sure. There was one more invention that I heard about that actually you would probably be interested in. So right now, when the airplanes come to be de-iced.
Your dad told me about this like 8 years ago. He was telling me about making this.
Yeah, it still eats them today.
Yeah.
It still kills them today.
Oh, we could talk about it. So
he actually worked on it.
Yes, that's awesome.
So right now they currently use a chemical, right?
Yeah, they use, so it's a glycol chemical like antifreeze.
Yeah.
Super toxic for the environment. Obviously, like, your dogs eat it because it tastes like fruit juice and it kills them. Yeah, it's not good. Like, so to de-ice an airplane, you would use, so you de-ice an anti-ice. Just so you get the initial blasting of frost and snow off, then you need to have another chemical to keep it off until you take off, until the anti-ice systems of the aircraft can take over in the air. That's all they're built for, is to be working in the air.
Yeah.
Long story short, the bigger planes use bleed air, which is generated from the engines. It takes part of the compressed air that's super hot and puts it across the wings on the tail and in the engine inlets to stop ice from forming. You need a fast moving engine to do that. You can't just be sitting there with like full power on the ground to keep that moving. It's a long story short kind of thing.
Right.
So yeah, you get de-iced with 50-50 mix of like water and a de-icing fluid that's warmed usually. That gives you like 10 minutes of protection. If it like, okay, you guys get to the airplane on the first flight of the day out of Buffalo and it snowed overnight, they blow it off. There's no more snow. That's it. You take off. But if it's actively snowing, you put on anti-ice fluid, thicker, gives you like, it depends on the type of fluid and how fast it's accumulating snow.
Yeah.
40 minutes of protection. Every single airplane gets, what was it? I couldn't even tell you how many gallons. The only time I would really ever pay attention to it was on the private jet, because it costs so much money that it'd be like, okay, and it'd be like 50 gallons of the stuff.
Yeah.
On a little plane. One little plane.
And it's just dripping to the ground after, you pour it over. It's just all on the ground.
Yep. And getting into and running off the snow on, like, yeah, that's just touching the tip of it because of how many
the drainage. Where is that going to?
Right. Like my company's 1,000 flights a day. We're a little guy compared to the big three that are all working also out of the Northeast like we are. Like, yeah, the amount. So yeah, your dad's invention was essentially what you pull in and it radiates like heat or something to heat up the airplane.
Yeah, and it wasn't his invention, but someone he helped. He was like contracted to help with the control system for it. But yeah, you're right. It would just evenly heat it all at once, and it completely took out the need for that
fluid.
Yeah, that. I think. Well, it sounds like there's two different fluids going on, or at least two different processes. Like maybe you still would need the one when you're taking off,
right,
to keep the ice off.
Yeah, right. Well, if you heat it up enough to like where you could probably keep it off for a certain amount of time. Yeah. So like you do need the anti-ice fluid after a while, but yeah, it's like
if we could cut out half of the use.
Right. Absolutely.
But yeah, and the moral or the ending of that story was they declined it. The airlines declined it because they wouldn't get the funding for managing hazardous waste.
Are you kidding me?
They were getting more money from the state, from the government, because, you're handling hazardous materials. We'll give you this extra budget because that's toxic, whatever.
Right.
But, if we get this heating system, we lose that money. Right. So, we don't want it.
That's crazy. That's absolutely crazy.
Yeah.
It's such a good invention to help everything. And you would think, like, you'd get a congressman on that, like activist congressperson that is very for the EPA environment, that kind of stuff, would want to eat that up, you would think. But even they're like, no.
Well, because they got donors.
Right.
They got people they got to please.
Right.
I mean, Joe Biden said it himself. No one is like, everyone's bought and paid for by somebody.
Yep.
So the older I get, the more I witness how politics are working and the businesses, the more I'm like, yeah, that's probably true.
You want to know, the more I'm finding out, like, have like, you go get drunk with friends or whatever and have a great conversation. It's like, we just fixed the world. And then you're like, that literally meant nothing. It's everything that's right and everything that needs to be fixed, and nothing's going to happen because we're so small compared to it. It's just crazy. It's always kind of a little depressing.
Well, I guess one thing I've been thinking about lately is that the good thing about capitalism is that we, the consumers, can choose who thrives and who doesn't.
Right.
So if a company is doing things that are inappropriate or unethical, immoral, then, hey, you don't got my business anymore.
Right.
I'm not going to give you any money. And I mean, over the past couple over this year, it seems a couple companies took a hit in that exact way where they crossed a line that the consumers weren't on board with.
Right.
So they said, you know what, we're not going to buy your stuff anymore. And so we do have that power.
Right.
And even job wise too, we can pick which jobs we want to work. You know, when I hear someone complain about, oh, you know, they got me working here real late and, you know, I can't wait till we can unionize and I wish we were a more socialist country. I'm like, dude, get another job.
Right.
Get a different job.
Right.
Like you have control over that.
Yeah, it's like the American dream. Like you have an option. Like, yeah, you can suffer through it. If you're making a good living, okay, you suffer through it and that's how you want to live your life.
Don't complain then.
Right.
If you're choosing to stay.
Right.
You know?
But yeah, the option is always there as long as you don't have a major economic collapse.
Well, that's true. That's true. Yeah, if things go so south and maybe you only have a few options.
Right.
I mean, I think back to like the Irish when they came, you know, that's my like lineage basically
Same
in America.
Yep.
And Italian. But yeah, like they were working in the mines that were owned by this company. They were paid in credits for stores that company owned.
Right.
And you know, we went down to PA, Jim Thorpe, PA. Beautiful.
Oh, yeah. Yep. Yeah.
Beautiful area.
That's awesome.
And they gave us the story about the Molly Maguires, they call them. So there's this prison downtown. If you go into like the scenic area of Jim Thorpe, it's like nestled right in the mountainside.
Yeah.
And there's this old jail there. So we took a tour of that and they talked about how these guys were inspired by this woman who was like revolting against the mining companies. So
I think you told me about that.
Yeah,
you went there. It was a little while ago. You went there, right?
Yeah,
a couple of years.
Caitlin and I have been a couple times.
Okay, cool.
Yeah, just get an Airbnb in the town, park your car, and you just walk everywhere all weekend.
That's awesome.
Just right there, you know, restaurants up and down, shops. But yeah, like we got the history of how those mining companies used to work, and it was literally just like indentured slavery. Like it was crazy. And if the husband died in the mines, you're all living in mine-owned apartments.
Yep.
Your husband dies. You have, I think it was 3 days to find a husband who's a miner if you want to stay there or you're out. They would literally kick mothers and children out of their home if their husband died in their mine.
It's wild.
Yeah. So I think capitalism unchecked, not good.
No, absolutely.
Socialism unchecked, not good.
Good. Well, that's the thing is like socialism on paper, and even going to as extreme as communism on paper, like Marxist communism, how it's written, is a utopian, perfect way to live. Everybody gets a piece of everything. Everybody's happy, blah, blah, blah. It's not. The humans are greedy. It doesn't ever work, even to the smallest scale.
Yeah.
Because greed is it's just in everything. It's no matter what. And you can even see it in yourself in some things. Everybody can.
Right.
You get some sort of little power. You're a manager at a company. Like, you don't want to give that power up. It's a weird thing. It's like a draw. Like something's pulling you. Like, oh, I don't want to take a demotion, even though it's better for me. You know, it was, you know, even an example of me was moving from my corporate job as a captain to the airlines as a first officer, which I'm way better off doing. But it's just like, oh, I'm not a captain anymore. Like, it's like,
It's a little humiliating.
Yeah,
it can be a little hit to the pride.
Right, exactly. Like, and it's like, oh, I don't want to give that up because I can say I'm the captain.
But I mean, they do say the best leaders are the ones who don't want to be.
Right. Absolutely. And that there was, it was like Wyoming or Montana, the governor had to be in like 2 terms ago or something. I just remember watching a documentary about something going on in Yellowstone or something like that, like the park. The governor was talking, that governor was like, I'm here to do my 4 years, serve my time, and I'm not running again. That's it. Like he didn't want, he's like, I got to do this for my state and then I'm done.
That sounds good to me.
You ever hear any of the New York State governors saying that? Hell no.
Well, the problem is too, they work 2 years and then they spend the next 2 years figuring out who's my donors for the next campaign. Yes. I got to get my campaign together for the next, I want to run again.
Right.
And then they're distracted their last 2, maybe 1 year. I don't know how long they really take to do this
Right.
stuff. But I know that they're sidetracked because they're worrying about, oh, how am I going to run this next campaign to try to get in here again? And maybe the solution is not to have 2 terms, but maybe 1 term that's like 5 years or 6 years.
A little, extend it. So just so that you're focused 100% on the task at hand. Yeah, I agree. That's not. I've never really thought of it that way, but that's not a horrible thing. Because then it's like, oh, why even do it if you're only there for 4 years? What difference can you make? But if it's a couple years extra, okay.
Well, that's the thing too. Like if you're truly out to help the community or change in a positive way, you won't count the losses.
Right.
You know, you'll be like, all right, this is my chance. I got 5 years, 6 years, whatever, to make this, to try to set about my vision for this city or this country. And I'll do my best to get there. And hopefully the legacy lives on past that.
Right.
You know, like, but what we talked about earlier, you know, honestly, like, I know there's a lot of people who don't like Trump, but when he declined the salary,
that's huge.
That was huge gesture.
Right.
Anybody would do that. Anybody could do that. And I would respect them for that.
Right.
Especially if you're a millionaire.
Right.
You know?
Yeah, I would hope that would just be a given.
Yeah.
But yeah, no, I 100% agree. And that's how I think it should all be, all government. Like I was saying earlier, it should just be 100% volunteer. Okay, here's a living expense. You can live in this house. And make it like, so like military leave from your job is protected. Like when you have to, you're a reservist and you have to go do that. It's like, okay, your job here, as long as the company doesn't go defunct, is saved. You go serve your term in office and then you come back and your job is guaranteed. Something like that.
Yeah, it's like jury duty.
Right, exactly.
I'm going to do jury duty for 4 years.
Right.
I'll be right back.
And I'm here to, like, it's just it would just bring so many people that are here to be like, okay, I feel like I can make a difference. And it's that much of it's a duty to serve, like how people, like I was saying, feel with the military. The duty to, like, you think of government, it's not like, oh, I'm going to serve my country. It's, oh, I get to go schmooze with people and figure out how to get money.
Yeah.
How to lobby and driving issue.
Yeah, it's too bad. Yep. I think, like you were saying, that greed is really the one thing that's just a poison in the human nature.
Right.
And not everybody expresses it as much as another.
Right.
You know, like some people have much more temperance with that emotion or like that draw to want to like gather everything to yourself. But there's always going to be somebody who only cares about getting more power, more influence. And that's the one thing with the Marxist movement that I really disagree with is how they want to dismantle the nuclear family.
Yes.
Like it's in their manifesto. Like you can read it, that they don't want it. And they also don't want like organized religion either.
Right.
So then what becomes the religion? Like every I mean, look at what happened in Canada during the pandemic. People started making like their safety, their religion.
Right.
Where you would want to think, okay, how would I behave if this huge disaster hit humanity? You might think to yourself like, yeah, I'd want to be out there helping people. You know, I'd be out there risking my life trying to help people. And I think a lot of people idealize themselves in that way. But then when push comes to shove, there were definitely people who stepped up, you know, for sure. Millions of people who really stepped up, especially like the nurses, the doctors, anyone who like actively went to be with that patient to give them some consolation, especially the ones that they knew were going to pass away, you know, like just being there with them. They're all gowned up, you're masked up, but you still got that little risk that you could get it, you know, and there was like so many unknowns too. You know, we find out later, okay, it might not have been that deadly for this demographic, but it's more deadly for the elderly. But there was still so many unknowns.
At that point, it was that person's, well, I don't know what the word I'm looking for is, but yeah, they said they were selfless enough to say, hey, this person got no one with them. What are they going to watch? Their family going to watch them on a freaking FaceTime. No, I'll go, yeah.
Yeah, we need like human interaction.
Right.
We definitely need like we're social creatures.
Right.
But I was hearing like in Canada there was neighbors who were calling the police on their neighbors because they had like their mom over. Yep. They had like family over.
A whole different ball game. And the thing is in Canada is you're not protected like we are. Like, yeah, that stuff happens. Like you have your rights. Like the cops come up and be like, sir, get off my property. Just leave. Canada, they don't have that. They don't have the Constitution. They don't have the Bill of Rights. None of that stuff to protect them from that. So yeah, like it can be really unwound really quickly. And yeah, I totally heard all that stuff.
Yeah, and it's like this is just my family. Like I'm only seeing my mom or something. You know, like, my mom needs help or something. Like I wanted to see my family on this holiday. Like we need some joy because that's another problem. Like everyone being shut in. Not seeing people like causes some depression, causes weakened immune system.
That's a huge thing. It's
you're
like,
not getting outside at all. Like you're shut in, not getting any sunlight, not getting fresh air. It was just a recipe for disaster. The way it was handled in some areas of the world. I feel like, especially like China they're still locked down on like places break out. They're locked down again. It's like it's still happening in this day. You just don't see it. Yeah. And their apartments are like half the size of this studio. Some of them I've seen, like pictures of some of those huge complexes and they weren't allowed to leave at all.
Yeah. It's a wild world.
I think what it taught me was that the government, and especially the family of governments that seem to be forming a closer and closer tight-knit circle of like this one world government ideal that they want to try to put out. It definitely seemed like they were working in collaboration very closely because everyone's responses were very similar and it was very totalitarian.
Mm-hmm. Oh, that's my fear was this just a test to see what can we get away with?
And what better way than to use health as as the main, like fear, the main tactic to like get people moving.
And I wore a mask and did that. Like, okay, in the beginning, it's like, is this going to help? Whatever, I can deal with this. But then it like was blatantly like, this is not helping, but still do it anyway. It's just something to get into. Remember when Ebola was talked about? Remember that disease?
Yeah.
It was like in Africa. Like that was scary. That was like, you had like a 90% chance of dying from that. And people were like, it's in Africa. Really?
Yeah, that's such a, that gets me hot too, man.
Yeah.
That gets me real hot. Well, like, and speaking of, like countries across the sea that American companies will just go there and decimate for their own gain.
Yep. Or you see it like the cobalt mines that humans are not, it's not supposed to be, whatever the type of mining they call it, where you actually pickaxe and like hammering rocks with cobalt's a radioactive element.
Yeah.
Like humans are not supposed to be in contact. It's supposed to be done with blasting and excavators. But they have literally 5,000 children in this mining cobalt.
Yeah.
For all the big tech companies that say, oh, we don't participate in that. You're full of crap.
And that's the biggest problem is like that. Well, that's part of like the big Green New Deal where like everything go electric. I'm all for like the cleanest possible energy sources. I'm all for it. But the fact that these batteries with lithium and the cobalt, like to create it, like the battery contains both. And then the mining, like you said, like that is what's happening.
Mm-hmm.
That is what's happening. And I saw like videos where they're interviewing those people and like, they got their kids strapped to their backs while they're out there mining this stuff.
Right.
And they're getting sick. Their children are getting sick.
Yeah, it's awful.
And when the companies are asked about it, like, are you working with suppliers that use child labor? And they're like, well, we just have our suppliers. We don't know where they get it from, but we trust them that they're getting it from an ethical source.
Third party, so who cares?
Yeah, I'm not responsible. I'm just buying from them. They got it. I don't know.
Right. It's like the sweatshops that the phones are made in. Oh, no. They do whatever they do in China.
Yeah, you get called in at 3 a.m. We got an order of 2 million iPhones we got to make tonight.
Yep.
I know you just worked a 13-hour shift, but we need you back.
All you want, here's your 5-cent paycheck, or else you're fired.
Yeah.
That's crazy.
And like I said, it goes back to like, as the consumer, we do have that power to choose.
Right.
And it's happening with the electric car companies because, or at least the electric, because I know some car companies are still doing gas and electric, but a lot of them have already invested billions into their electric car fleets and they're not selling.
Yeah. Well, that's the thing with electric is like, yeah, like you said, it's like, yeah, if we can manage to make, if electric's the answer and we can figure out how to do it, we're not there yet. We are, and even Elon, who has some of the best electric vehicles in the world, just makes them because they're efficient and cool. It's like, we are not even close to going full electric. You have to, it's like 80% increase in mining, which runs on fossil fuel vehicles to do.
Yeah.
Like it's not sustainable. It's just it's not possible right now. Electric storage via minerals is not the way it's just, there needs to be some sort of way or method to like come out of energy, which back to like your dad's guy with the water purification. There was also that guy, like it was in the 80s or something, or I think even earlier in that 70s, who found out how to burn 90% water mixed with gasoline.
Yeah.
It's a legitimate, like, this is like a known, it's not even like a conspiracy, it's like a known thing. So he figured out how to do that. He made it burn and combust in an internal combustion engine. GM came to him, bought the patent from him. I can't say it was GM. I don't want to quote that it was GM. It was one of the major auto manufacturers, came, bought the thing. The guy was dead the next day.
And then where's that car?
It's gone. Yeah, it's gone. That whole idea is...
If we want to change our energy source to whatever society wants, like as long as like everyone's in agreement, you know, we want to shift to this power source, it has to be a gradual shift so that infrastructure can be put into place.
Absolutely.
And we can have people be able to transition over. Because I mean, like, you know, we can go buy a gas running car for, you know, 20 grand for like a nice car, or 50 grand for an electric car.
Right.
And it's just not affordable.
Nope.
For for the average American. We're not buying a $50,000 car just to say we have an electric, which ends up costing about as much.
Right. And like any of the people I know that have a Tesla are like, oh, I bought it because it's fast as hell. Like, the thing does 0 to 60 in like a crazy amount.
Oh yeah, it's instant torque.
And they're really cool. Like, it's like autopilot. That stuff's all really cool. And it's like, I didn't buy this because I'm saving the environment. I bought it because it's cool. Like,
yeah. And at the end of the day, too, you know, we talked about sustainability. First off, you know, the electric, where is it coming from? Mm-hmm. Is it coming from coal? Is it coming from a waterfall? Right. You know, like, okay, Buffalo, we got the waterfall. Right. But like the whole country doesn't have that. The world doesn't. You know, like there's definitely limited resources, and you're ending up upping your electric consumption, which will up the fossil fuel consumption to fuel the electric consumption. Right. And then when the power goes out and we all don't have gas hookups anymore, you know, like Kathy was trying to force down our throats in New York. You know, we had a blizzard. Right. Last year, where people survived because they had gas burning stoves in their house and were able to heat their houses enough to stay alive. Right.
And just to mention to people, what was it, 60 or 70 people died in that blizzard because they were out in it? Like, yeah. If you didn't know about that.
But how many more would have died if it was an electric car? Right. Right. The batteries are not that resilient to the cold. They hold the charge much less time holding a charge in the cold weather compared to warmer.
Absolutely. The charge factor and the fact that it takes a lot of energy to heat an electric heater, which is what they have to run off of. Whereas combustion engine, we just use parasitically take heat from the engine and run it through coolant that is hot, that goes through our heat exchanger to blow hot air on us.
Yeah, so it's really sad the way things have been going. Like it's all it's all being pushed so quickly because, you know, like maybe it's because the terms are kind of short.
Right. Yeah.
Maybe like they're
because
like,
they don't have enough
4 years. We gotta do this right now. We gotta get this done before they come in and ruin it all. And like it's just a constant back and forth.
And does that extending that, would that make the partisan, you know, would people start to work together a little more? Like, okay, we're stuck with this person for 6 years. Can we actually work together?
Yeah, but then like I said, like 1 term limit.
Right.
So that they're not jonesing on the next campaign.
Exactly. And just dropping everything to campaign.
They're giving their all till the last minute so that they have a good legacy to leave behind.
Right. And even if it was saying, because 2 terms is a limit for, well, president. I mean, there's nothing for governor or congressperson, which is crap.
There should be limits for sure.
But like, now what are we? We're in election year, so you guarantee they were getting ready for it. Well, it's election year next year. They started getting ready for it the whole year this year. It's gonna be the whole year next year. The campaigning starts if it's a re-election, not if Biden's running again. We don't even know if he is, but
yeah, well, he doesn't campaign, so right. I guess we'll get his all until the end,
right? Yeah, right. But yeah, back to one more thing to touch on with the going green thing and the initiative. It's like you can never have that conversation with people because you're just a non-believer. It's like no, not at all. We just need this. Just doesn't make any sense. And here's one of my biggest things is, what are we doing about the countries that actually matter? And what I mean by that is the United States could disappear tomorrow, gone, no trace. And the pollution of the earth, the actual total percentage, it was something like, would only go down by like legitimately 1% because we are actually green conscious compared to, I think it's like India and China are the top polluters of the world. Like all that plastic and stuff in the ocean is not from the United States. It just isn't. And it's not being racist or anything like it's from those countries that don't do anything about it. They just throw it in their oceans. Their rivers are trashed from their own doing. So they don't put in this stuff into their protection.
Yeah. Well, I think that comes down to the major companies that are running everything.
Right.
And like over here, we have private corporations that they're setting out to clean the ocean. Like there's that one, private company started by like this college kid who has this huge net that they tow.
Yeah, I've seen that. Yep.
They just tow it through the ocean and then they like bag it up, and they've been killing it, just like scraping it out.
And yeah, back to what you said though too with, it is the companies going third party funding all of these companies in these less
we could be causing the pollution across the board,
So via a couple avenues, yes. Okay, it is in turn the United States fault. Yes, okay, so I redact that and say, okay, it's not the United States, but the general population here that's conscious about it, which is pretty much everybody. Like, there's nobody out there that's like, oh, I'm gonna just do this because screw the green people. Like, no, nobody. Like, I don't think. I mean, okay, maybe there's a select few, but like nobody's like out there like.
There's always like a wild fringe that's gonna be out there.
Right, but realistically, like a rational person, left or right, centric, whatever, is gonna be like, okay, if I can do this and it's gonna help, just as a good person, they're gonna do it.
Yeah.
But what I was saying is it doesn't matter. It literally doesn't matter what we do here because none of that stuff's in check.
I think we should be good stewards of the earth. I don't think I think there's a few more pressing issues, like what's going on in the schools now. Kids have wild imaginations, and they're exploring themselves. They're like figuring themselves out who they are, playing dress up as kids, like that's what kids do. And now it's getting to a point where a middle schooler will like wear a dress or something, just having fun, or like make a side comment. I wonder what it'd be like to be like, a boy, like if they're a girl, Mm-hmm. Then now all of a sudden some of these schools are like, oh, well, you must be transgender.
Right.
You must be in the wrong body, and we're going to do what we can to get you over to that body. And it's just, I feel like this right now is probably the biggest issue in my mind, at least for America, is the fact that these are children who don't know, they don't have proper reasoning yet. You know, they still have to grow. They're not mature. A lot of them haven't gone through puberty yet. And they're saying, well, that's a good thing. You know, like if you don't feel like you should be this way, then let's get you on these puberty blockers before you go into puberty so that you won't end up in your proper state.
Right.
We'll keep you on how you're feeling right now.
Right. No, 100%. And it's like, that is a huge issue, is messing with, it's something that you do just, and this is like, I'm a straight down the line libertarian. I'm going to defend your right to freedom and whatever that may be. I could disagree. So here's an example I love, and people disagree with me all the time on this. I absolutely hate and think it's the most disrespectful in the world to stomp on the American flag. Hate it. It's awful. It's that person's right to do that, though, and I'm going to defend their right to do that. I hate it. People disagree with that. That's fine, but that's what I'm defending, is their choice to do that. And getting commenting on what you were saying is like yeah, 100%. Somebody wants to make a transition, do what they need to do it, but leave the damn kids alone. 100%. They need to figure out who they are and get to that point past puberty, and then yes.
Yeah, and something to look out for to any parents listening right now is the teachers. If they hear some sort of comment from a child, they can choose to just kind of coax them on with that thought process, trying to like coach them to embrace this disordered thought process that they're having, and they won't tell the parents.
Right.
And this is happening in California right now. And I'm not saying every school district is doing this. I'm not saying every teacher is doing this, but there are some teachers out there who are doing this. And as a parent, like, we have to fight for our children. Mm-hmm. And if that, like, I always say, like, as a parent, you have to be willing to die for your child. And that doesn't mean just a mortal death, you know, like I sacrificed my life for them. It's every day sacrificing your life for them.
Right.
So if your child is in a school and you're hearing reports from teachers that, you know, your kid's saying like they think they're a he now, and, you know, we just want to make sure he's getting the proper support at home. And, you know, they're minors. They're talking about minors here right now. You know, like you said, when you're 18 plus, right, if like you really feel like you got to do that, I mean, I think, I personally think that there's better options than mutilating your body forever. But when it comes to minors, that they need us as adults, as parents, to defend them and to protect them. Right. And there are adults out there that don't have this interest in mind, and that it's like they want the children to change gender. They want these kids to embrace that lifestyle. And it's really something you got to look out for, because children are so malleable. They're so easy to influence that if the wrong teacher is coaching a child to continue on with that sort of thought process, then you might lose your kid.
Right. You need to just let your kid, you just need to be as not persuasive as possible. Like, okay, if that's what you believe as a kid, that's what, yeah, like you said, like play pretend, or that's how you feel now.
Yeah.
I couldn't imagine, like, the amount of things I felt when I was little, like, oh, I want to be a Jedi. Like, yeah, that's what I believed growing up, and I was allowed to believe that.
Right.
If you want to believe you're a girl, do it. But somebody coaxing you to believe that, 100%, like, you need to stay centric and out of it. Like, I had one teacher, like, through high school that I remember. He's to this day one of my favorite teachers I ever had. He would never tell you who he voted for. He was a history and like government teacher, like that's the social studies teacher.
Yeah.
And you literally, he would argue, he would go, like, there would be a kid with a right-wing view, or like came from a right-wing family, like hard right or a kid with a hard left family, and he would argue each side to the letter of the other side, and you could never tell what side he was on. I know what side. I'm friends with him now, but like so I know where he stands with that, but I'm like completely opposite of what I thought. And that's how every teacher in the world needs to be able to defend another side and make an argument with something against what's happening. It was just the way he acted with everything was it was a fantastic. It's like he should be the model for every person that's teaching kids.
Yeah, that sounds good to me.
Yeah, like the whole thing with that people get up in arms about with DeSantis and don't say gay, that's not what it is at all. It's literally don't talk about sex to young kids. If you actually look at what it says. Doesn't say don't say gay. It says don't say anything.
Yeah, I mean, last I checked, usually people who talked about sex with young children are considered pedophiles.
But wait, no, they're minor attracted individuals now. That's one thing that fires me up, man. Oh, defend that. No. Please defend that to me, to my face. Do it. That I'll go off on that.
Call them what you want. You're still...
Still going out.
You still got to be locked up if you act on those.
I think more than locked up.
Well, there's one thing I thought about too, just from like a Christian perspective. I understand that there are very, very driving hormonal or even spiritual temptations that come, and it's up to the person to fight those intrusive thoughts, or like at least like pray for the grace to get through it. So. I mean, honestly, I do feel bad for some pedophiles who have that desire.
Right. Okay. Yeah. I
that must be awful.
Right.
Especially if you're like, you can't control it. It's like an obsessive compulsive thing in your mind.
Something that you're torn apart about. That's like, I know this isn't right, but I need help kind of thing. Like legitimately mentally ill or... in what you're talking like temptation from the devil kind of thing,
right? Yeah,
like somebody that really needs help or is like really getting pulled. Okay, yeah. See, it's always brings up another side of it, which obviously is not defending it, but like, yeah, like you feel sorry for. Absolutely.
Yeah, I would say like these. I would say for sure. When I say my prayers, I mention pedophiles. I mention people who have a tendency, who have body dysmorphia, where they think they belong in a different body. That must be awful. And the problem is, before like the past 5 years, the occurrence of that actually being the case where someone truly thought that they were in the wrong body, it was like 0.1% of the population.
Yeah, that's not like opinionated. That's like an actual legitimate statistic. I know what you're talking about.
Right, yeah. So you've heard the stat.
Unfortunately, the suicide rate remains the same as a person transitions. That if that person would not have transitioned, unfortunately, the depression and suicide rate remains the same. And it's not, again, being desensitive to it. That's facts. Can't be facts.
And what it shows, that statistic, is that mutilating your body in some way isn't getting to the root cause of the problem.
Right.
Like a lot of these kids are struggling, like maybe they were abused and now they feel disconnected from their body, or they don't want to they want to be in more control. Like they want to feel more powerful. So they want to like identify as a man now because they can't hurt me if I'm a man.
Right.
Like that. And I mean, these are children too. So like the thought process is not the most rational.
Right. And if we're just to what you were saying, like move it on to a fully developed adult that's having those same issues and just confusion, like not even, what's the word? Like, the inner pole, like the inner confusion of what is, and unfortunately what I've seen about it is like gay folk they've fought so hard throughout the last, what is it, like 30 years or so, like to get their rights and be noticed and things. And again, it's things that I actually support. And then it like seems to be just taken over by this wave of transgenderism, which is just like, it's a bit confusing to me.
Well, my question is, who creates the acronym? the LGBTQ plus, like who creates that, and when are maps going to be added to that? Because right now, everything related to sex that's considered taboo in society is being lumped into this one acronym. And I think you and I talked about it, how, let's say someone does have, like a homosexual attraction. That doesn't mean that they support a child being mutilated.
Right. No, not at all.
Because they're feeling like they don't really know themselves, or, like,
right.
But they're being forced to be included in this group that then becomes like,
oh yeah, I totally get what you're saying.
Like,
right.
Are they fighting against, like, have you talked to anybody who thinks that that's unfair, that they're being lumped in with everybody when they disagree?
I think that's
with
the whole thing about it is, like, as you would think as a gay person or a specific one of that acronym would be like, I don't necessarily see that person's side, or I feel differently than that. So it's like, yeah, okay. Yeah, totally get what you're saying with that.
It's like, yeah, I don't want to do that. I'm not part of that.
Right.
I don't agree with that.
Right.
And that's where I think that whole movement is already kind of toxic, because it's forcing everybody within that group to comply with their one agenda. And if you fit into that acronym, then you better be with us, or you're against us.
That's a good point. Like, who is the chairman of the board of that? Like, that says, like, sets all the, like, it is a little, that's a good question.
And I don't know the answer, but I do feel like, new letters are being added all the time. And the fact that pedophiles are now being referred to as minor attracted persons, I saw the writing on the wall. I was like, it's only a matter of time before they're added to that group. And then you got this whole crew. And then, like, I think that's when the infighting might start happening.
Yeah, that might be, no matter who you are in that, you don't want to be associated. Any rational thinking person does not want to be associated with that. That minor attracted individual should fall under the mentally ill acronyms, whatever they have over there. Like,
yeah,
right.
And like I said, it must be a terrible, terrible cross to bear to have those sorts of inclinations and thoughts.
Now, unless it's deliberate, though, if it's a deliberate, like, you want to do harm,
malice,
like, there's specific people that we obviously have seen in history that were like the Ted Bundys and the Jim Jones and stuff, that were like deranged people, are like, oh, we're gonna kill all these people, and like, it was fun to them, kind of thing.
Yeah, well, luckily they got locked up.
Right.
The problem right now is that people are getting away with these things because it's becoming socially acceptable, and they're not getting locked up for convincing children to go through with these procedures. And the biggest problem too is that they're promising these children freedom. They're promising them a happy life. This is going to be so great if you do this. And if you look at this from a business model, these kids that go through this before puberty, before their bodies are fully developed, before their bones are fully developed, are now having issues that they need to be on prescription medications for the rest of their lives.
Right.
And it's a cash cow.
Yeah, absolutely.
For the hospitals, for the pharmaceutical companies. And I think that could be part of the push for this, like, transhumanism that's leaking into the country. And it's also creating this huge swath of the population to be infertile.
Right. Well, that's a lower population, easier control kind of thing.
Population reduction, population control. And now they're trying to design babies. You've heard designer babies. I don't know if you've heard of that yet.
Yeah, I've heard about that. Even like down to the gritty of like lab grown meat and all that stuff. Like,
yeah, well, there's a company called CRISPR that's actually doing a lot of like gene editing.
Really?
And looking into
making like a specific look for
a baby.
Your kid. Wow.
Yeah, like, how can we
not just letting it be God's will?
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, manipulating,
playing God.
Yep. There's obviously things that they can't control at this point, but I think they've gotten to the point where they can do like hair color, eye color.
Right.
But like, things associated with like facial structure, like beauty and stuff like that. It's like much more complex. But I see it this way. We have birth control being pushed like crazy. And now we have this movement where people are mutilating themselves so that they can't reproduce anymore. So we have this huge decline in reproduction happening. And I think it seems like the goal is to have first a lower population. And then secondly, if you want to be a parent, like this is like an eventual, and it's a hypothetical, so it might not happen, but I think this could be part of the plan is if you want to have a child, you'll have to apply for it. You have to put in an application. You'll have a huge fee.
I think there's a movie out like that now, actually.
But I mean, like looking at the trend of like, why are these things being pushed so hard?
Right.
Why is it trendy to be, transgender now? It's trendy. It's literally like I heard a talk today actually about how, specifically like teens will go through this where like anorexia, let's say, who's the skinniest in the class? Oh, you've been throwing up. Oh, that's getting you that skinny. Oh, I should do that too.
That's been a thing, definitely. Even like when we were in school and before us too. I know that was like, because I remember learning about anorexia, bulimia, in like early health class. Like
I remember that too.
Yeah,
it was real. It was trendy,
right,
during our like teenage years, and these. I see it this way. I see anorexic children that think it's good for them to not eat. And then I see adults saying, good for you. I think, if that makes you happy, you shouldn't eat. And in fact, you should go get liposuction because then you'll really be who you want to be. I think that's exactly what's happening with the minors that are being targeted by transgender advocates, where they have, just this inclination. And this speech I listened to also talked about some of the statistics from the psychological standpoint that when you allow a child to just live it out, just grow up, see what happens, see how you feel when you're older. 70% of that 0.1% ended up maintaining the sex that they were born as, and they were happy. 70% grew out of it.
That's huge.
But now we're not allowing that growth to happen. We're saying, you feel this way, boom, we're going to do this. And now there's all sorts of people that are coming out of the woodwork, which I'm really happy about because they're being vocal about it and brave about it, where they're coming out and saying that wasn't the right move. And now I can't use my reproductive organs for how they should be. I want to be a mother. Now I can't be.
Right.
Things like that. And
it's like the even going back to that's why don't you think 14-year-olds can get tattoos?
Yeah,
because they're gonna get some. I remember I was at a tattoo. I have a bunch of tattoos. I even hate some of the tattoos I have that I made the choice of when I was able to make the choice. It's like, come on. I was in a tattoo shop and there was this kid, like I think his mom was getting a tattoo or something. And he literally had a Monster Energy symbol and he was like, "Yeah, I'm gonna get this tattooed when I can." And I'm like, "No, you're not, dude. Like Monster Energy when you're 9? Come on, you ain't getting that tattooed. Like, thank God you couldn't make that decision right now." Like, come on.
Yeah. Because it probably seemed incredible to him too. In his mind, he was like, "I will love this till I'm 80 years old. This is going to be so sick."
Promise you won't.
But like you said, like you can't get tattoos, you can't smoke, you can't drink, you can't join the military. Why?
Can't make huge life-altering decisions before the age of making those decisions. And it's even arguable that's even too early to make those decisions. Like, you're just figuring out where to go to college at that point, if you even figure that out by that point.
I know. I mean, like, you can go through college with a career set in mind, and then 2 years after college, you're like, I don't like this.
Yep.
I wish I went back to school for something different. Yep. And we're talking about, manipulating your body forever.
Right.
Forever.
Yeah. That's not even like you can get a tattoo removed. You can't do that. You can't remove what you just did.
Yeah, and there's so many complications. Like the puberty blockers will cause your bones to not develop the way they're supposed to, because you're blocking certain processes where your body is like, it's beefing up, like it's growing into the person you're supposed to be.
Right.
And if you block that from happening, you'll never go through that process ever.
Right.
Like it's gone. That ship has sailed.
Right. It's like osteoporosis in old people. You can't re-strengthen the bones. It's impossible.
Yeah.
So you're causing that as a adolescent.
So I'd say, like, I mean, for any parent, you know, I would just say be involved with your child's school. Go to those, you know, school board meetings, talk with the teachers, talk with your children, make sure that they're being taught the correct things. And there's a lot of wonderful educators out there that are definitely looking out for the best in the children. But, you know, there are those few that will try to become the parent of the child and keep this stuff from you.
School loves to try to do that. They love to try to get involved in everything, which public school, government, school. Yeah.
And I think, like, I don't want to belabor the topic too much. So I just wanted to discuss like one last story that it was in the documentary, true story. This woman living in California, her daughter was going to school, and they had this secret group for people who were questioning their identity, questioning their sexuality. And I guess like the kids who found out about it went to them, and then they started spreading the word to other kids. This one girl heard about it. She thought it sounded cool. She was coming into that like sort of rebellious teenage age that most teenagers go through.
Right.
You know, like everyone had that weird phase that we went through. But she goes there, and, you know, they're told your parents don't have the best interests in mind. Oftentimes, your family members are the biggest enemy. Saying things like that, you know, and like acting like they're super supportive of that child and trying to provide them like a safe space. Like, you know, with your parents, you're not really safe because they think you should be this way. But if you really feel like this, like, you can come to us. We'll be here for you. And so this girl slowly became more and more entrenched in that group and got to a point where like she didn't want to talk to her mom, and her mom was like, you know, what's going on?
Right.
What
like,
is going on with you? And she's like, you're just trying to control me. You don't know anything. You don't know me. And this is like a mother, you know?
Mm-hmm.
And that's the one thing. When you send your kid to a school for 8 hours a day, 5 days a week, they're being raised by another individual for half their life. If you just split that time, you have half their time, the school has the other half.
Yep.
And so this girl like slowly started becoming more and more distant from mom. Then she wanted to start being called a he, and the mom was just like, no, like, you know, you're my girl. Like, let's go to counseling. I know you've been depressed. Like, she knows her daughter. She knows that her daughter was struggling, had some maybe social insecurities, because a lot of teenagers go through that. A lot of teenagers get depressed and, you know, do things that aren't great for themselves, you know, like self-harm, you know, that happens sometimes. It's tragic, but like at that age, I feel like they're very prone to it because the hormones are just like, you know, they're exploding. And so it's hard to think straight when you're going through that. So long story short, the girl eventually moves out of her mom's house, moves in with a friend from this group and her mom. And the mom loses custody over her. The school calls and says, like, we have reason to believe that you've been abusing her because this is her little girl and she wouldn't call her a he. So they're calling that child abuse, parental child abuse, not saying that your minor child is the sex that they were born as. So she lost custody, and the kid ended up going through some surgery, had no one there, And apparently that friend that she was with kind of ditched. I don't know if she moved or something, but she wasn't around. And the girl was so alone and depressed and never got the actual help that she needed. Because if you go to a psychiatrist and say, I think I'm this gender, you can get a prescription for the hormones that day.
Right.
They'll be like, oh, okay, here you go. And like, well, don't I need like a psych eval or something? Like, shouldn't we dig into this to find out
about what is that? Like, not even that, like, or that, but like, not even. It's like, here's the side effects. Here's what you're going to go through. Are you sure you want to do this? Just, are you sure? Like, it's irreversible. This is like, that's it. And yeah,
every single person in that documentary, because they had a few detransitioners who talked about their journey. And they all said getting the procedures was so easy. Getting the hormone treatment, super easy. It took like 1-2 sessions with these therapists, and none of them, some of the therapists are afraid of losing their license now if they try to work with them and say, why do you feel this way? Like maybe there's something deeper, and maybe this is like a front or like a cry for help. Mm-hmm. And maybe you're being influenced by bad influences too, you know? But like no one took that time with her to get to the root cause, and she killed herself.
It's awful.
And it goes back to that stat that you said. And her mom was told the exact same thing that you said, where they said, would you rather have a dead daughter or a son that's alive? So they threatened the parents saying, your kid's going to commit suicide if you don't sign off on this.
Mom doing what she thinks is best to make everything right.
Yeah. And if you don't agree, then that's child abuse. Where it's like, absolutely the other side of the coin is the child abuse. If you're telling a child that they can have this procedure and you actually go through it, you're a child abuser, just point blank, period.
Right.
And it's just so dark. Yep. It's so dark to me. Like as a father, you know, it really, like my heart really goes out to these parents that have to deal with this. And I mean, if you're dealing with teachers that are behaving that way, trying to hide stuff from you, move.
Right.
Go to a different town. This is your child's life. And like as a spiritual person too, you're in charge of their soul as well, like to get them to heaven. Right. Like that is your main mission as a parent. And if a teacher is leading them down a path that's going to lead to misery and destruction, you have to be willing to uproot your life to get that kid out of that situation.
That's the whole point of having a kid. Like you're the protector of the child. That's your main goal in life.
Yeah, you can live wherever. Right. You can get a job somewhere else.
Right.
There's going to be a job somewhere else. There's going to be a house somewhere else. But yeah, if the suicide rates are something to be very conscious about.
Right.
With those procedures. And I guess I'll leave it at that, you know, just be very careful and do your research and be involved in your kids' education.
I saw this talked about too, was like, it's that weird thing in societies, like great societies, Rome, Egypt. The minute when it means that it's too much of a comfort thing. These societies, before their collapse, all started to become obsessed with gender.
Right.
Arguing about it and things like that. All of them collapse. It means that your society is getting too easy. We have, granted, yeah, it's an issue, but like, we don't have, you know, like you think the people in these countries that you can't live without being fear of being shot on the street, you think they're worried about this right now? No, they're worried about how they're going to survive, how they're going to eat tomorrow.
Yeah.
Right now, we're so lavishly living that we don't even have to worry about that anymore. And that's what's driving a lot of this stuff and a lot of these crappy arguments. And like he said, she said, when you really get to know someone, you probably agree with more of what they want to say or then disagree. Probably more than you agree with than you disagree with. And you can't figure it out because they're so obsessed with this crap. We don't have to worry about anything anymore.
Yeah. I mean, we're living like kings.
Right.
You know, we got AC, we got we got a house for our cars. We got a house for us.
We got a car. We don't have to ride a horse.
Some of us got 2 cars.
Some people have 18 cars.
I mean, yeah, like we're living, you go back just 100 years and we are living like kings right now compared to the rest of our human existence. Right. So I agree with you totally. Like we are so spoiled, and having, like, COVID was a hardship for sure for a lot of different reasons. But yeah, I think if we were to face a wartime, there would be just panic.
And if the internet disappeared, we got EMP'd or something like that. It's like literally, it was some crazy stat, like 80% of the population will be gone within like 2 weeks.
Really?
There's so much.
I could believe it.
So like all the old, like you think like the internet goes out, electric grid's gone because it's all ran off of computers and internet and stuff.
Well, they are separate though. You could lose the internet but still have electric.
It's gonna take a minute to get it all figured out, but like, okay, you have a little while where you have zero electricity or zero ways to communicate with each other. It's like every person's medical chart that's in the hospital is on the computer, gone. Okay, yeah. You're gonna lose all these old people, all these sick people right now. See you later. And then it's gonna be miscommunication, people uprooting all. Random crap happens in the city and the whole city riots and loots and stuff. That's all gonna happen in every city. How many people are gonna be dead from that? Like, I'm out. See you later. I'm going to West Virginia at first and get out to like Montana.
Yeah. Well, that's the beauty of diversity though. Diversity in resources or power sources, because if one goes out, you still have like some backups to work with.
Right.
But if right now we're all trying to just move to electric exclusively, then the whole country is at risk to be completely downed.
Right.
Instead of maybe like a mixture of energy sources where we could be like, okay, you know, we lost that, but we can still keep these people alive for a bit until we get that back up. Well, I guess we do have backup generators. I think hospitals do have that in place.
Well, they do, but how long can it run if you can't call somebody to say, attacked. I need a fuel delivery here to fuel my thing, and you can't communicate that, or we're so dependent on it. It's like even phones aren't like, it's like these big, even think of like, okay, that's my stepdad works at the Lockport power plant. It's like they run off of natural gas, so whatever natural gas is getting supplied from wherever, they probably send an internet request, hey, we need this however many millions of gallons delivered here next week, something like that. That all's gone. All the whole log's gone. It's like it's a chain reaction of stuff. It's kind of crazy to think about.
Yeah. Well, I hope we don't see it in our time. But Bobby, it was great having you on tonight, man.
Yeah, man.
I appreciate you coming out. Great chat.
Yeah.
Thanks for coming on, man.
Yeah, dude.